What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for week 5 of the NFL Weekly here on the network. We break down everything the week ahead of the NFL has to offer. With me, as always, we have my two very good friends, two partners in this endeavor. We'll start with Coach Brandon Lupian. Coach, you can find Coach at Portland 76er. How you doing tonight, sir?
Geez, like when I hear you say week 5, this season is going about like at full throttle. Like, geez, it's going by so fast, And hey, here we are. I've unfortunately missed the last couple of weeks. My bad, but here we are. We're trying to make it happen for y'all.
Yes, sir. And I will take the blame on the last 2 weeks. Work kept me a little later than normal. So, but with me as well, or with us, I should say, as always, is Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Raider Jim at Raider Jim 1090 on Twitter. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing very well. I'm in San Diego, California. I'm on a podcast with two of my best buddies. What else could I ask for?
Amen. Well, amen. Could be a lot worse. Oh.
Jim.
But we are going to, before we do dive into week 5, we are going to take a moment just to reflect on week 4. And I'll get it started mainly. I think the big storyline of week 4, outside of your single team or, this or that, has to be what happened last Thursday night with Tua and the concussion. And, I know there are a whole lot of people that are able to, or it was not as readily available as NBC having the Thursday night game. So now it's on Amazon Prime. So not everyone saw it. But to see Tua on the ground and his hands spasming, kind of uncontrollably, I'll be honest, I felt guilty. I love football. I love this game. I love talking with you all about it, and just watching it, enjoying it. But that night I felt a little bit of guilt just myself, because as much as I love this game, it's costing those players a lot in terms of their health. And for Tua, 4 days after he got, I know they called it a back injury, but if you watch that again, he was woozy in week 3, and they trotted him out week 4. And unfortunately, it didn't end well. Tua will definitely be out for at least this week. I would assume a little longer. The independent doctor who presided over the week 3 concussion has been relieved of duties. Kind of sounds like a scapegoat to me, but you know what? That's gonna happen. I just think there are a lot of questions for the Dolphins and the NFL have to answer. Unfortunate, or I hope I'm wrong, but there's a part of me that believes we might not ever see Tua on the field again, but possibly for his own health and his own safety, that might be for the best. That's definitely what caught my eye, but we'll start with you, Raider Jim. What were some takeaways from week 4 for you?
Well, I'll tell you, I couldn't have said it better than what you did about the Tua situation. And anybody that has said it, I think I'm on their side of the fence when they say the Dolphins organization has to be accountable for this. This is the gentleman's career. It's done. We all know to some level the big old rascal, Billy Ray Smith. And I was just sharing a conversation about him with somebody who knows him, who is his barber, as a matter of fact. And we were both sharing, what we know, and, just saying it's really a shame that this is what happens to these gentlemen for playing a game like this. I kind of look at it, I understand it's not apples to apples, and I'm not calling any NFL player no more than a beast or an animal, but Brandon, you and I, fans of horse racing. Yeah. And when you see these horses get pushed, get drugged, and collapse on the racetrack, and they are no more after that. So I'm with you. You kind of start getting that little guilty feeling when you see some of this. So best of luck to him. I hope he makes the right move for him and his family. Other than that, week 4, it's starting to shape up a little bit more. It looks like we've got some consistency out there. Consistency being the Bills, the Chiefs, the undefeated first place Philadelphia Eagles. I'll say
That's
it.
First with an
Absolutely.
E, everyone, too. That's First with an E.
That's it. And then we also have what else is looking to be maybe a pattern of consistency? The LA Rams. Maybe, it's beyond Super Bowl hangover, and maybe even the Bengals, 2-2. It's going to be interesting to see the Ravens. What's happening with the Ravens? They come out like gangbusters, and then they don't have that killer instinct, and they can't hold the leads. So just a very, very, it's starting to gel a little bit more in my eyes. And I think by week 7, who knows, it might be real consistent.
Yeah. The Ravens are an odd one. I think I saw something they've trailed for 14 seconds this year, and they're 2-2. So yeah, that's very hate to say it, but the Norv Turner old Chargers, that seems like their MO. But Coach, what are your takeaways from week 4?
Yeah, a real unfortunate situation for Tua. I don't want to repeat what you said and Raider Jim elaborated on, but there's got to be some kind of accountability for this Miami Dolphins franchise, whether it's this unforeseen injury or incident, whether it's offering their former head coach to lose games. Like, this is a team with an ownership group that I don't even see them with spankings of the hand from the NFL as far as punishing these guys for some real mean things, or these real unauspicious things that just shouldn't happen to individual lives. And they just brush it under the rug. But week 4, my team was in England. I hate that game. I hate the London game. I hate the Thursday game. I hate a lot of things that the changes that the NFL have been doing to attract fans, to accommodate fans, really put these poor guys at risk. And a flight over the pond's not easy. A game going recovery from Sunday to Thursday, definitely not easy. And there are repercussions. In regards to my Saints, they're coming back from across the pond. They're probably going to be a little lackadaisical this week, as if that's the last thing we need with the start of our season and the injuries and whatnot. So not looking forward to week 5 like I might be like toward Raider, like what Raider Jim said, week 7. Everything's just been difficult for me as far as, picking out a win or a under-over or whatnot. But individual teams are starting to define what they are going to be for the moving forward from this week on.
I agree. It was a tough one, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, myself and Raider Jim, last week. The oversaturation of the London game. It used to be one game, and it was cool. It was nice for the East Coast people. They get a 9:30 tip or a kickoff. If you want to wake up here on the West Coast, feel free. But now it's, essentially week 4 through 14. Someone's in England, and I kind of brought it up last week. It was like Thursday night football games were kind of the end of season reward. Now every team is on Thursday night football. Do we get to a point where every team is in an international game? That's unfortunately, I believe, the way we're rolling, but it is a perfect little segue. We are going to start in the NFC South. First and foremost, we will have the Seattle Seahawks. They will head to the Big Easy. They'll be taking on the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. At the moment, the Saints are 5.5-point favorites here. The over-under sits at 46. Coach, I know it's been a tough few weeks for the Saints, but what are your thoughts as they host Pete Carroll's Seahawks?
In seasons past, we could look at 46 and say consistently for a number of seasons, 54 was a good number as far as an over, and that's not the case right now. You don't have security with quarterbacks and superstar or skill position players. Injuries are just around the league. Same with the Saints, like another week without Jameis, another week without Michael Thomas, maybe 70% Alvin Kamara, but maybe. And then you really don't know what you get from the red-headed rifleman and Andy Dalton. He's a steady contributor, but he's not what he used to be early on with Cincinnati, where there was some dynamity to decision-making or being able to make certain throws that he used to younger in his career or earlier in his career. And then I don't know what's going on with this Seattle team. Where is Geno coming back to earth? You just don't know. So I really do like 46 as an under 46 versus the over 46. It's hard to gauge because again, I mentioned in the previous segue, these guys are coming back from England. You know, normally when you go east to west, the time change doesn't hurt you as much versus west to east. But you're coming from another gosh darn continent, you know, and it's like, where are you as a team with our record and with the travel and, you know, who knows, the shepherd's pie out there, maybe, you know, who knows, but, you know, this is a erratic team. This is a unexpected result team from Seattle. Rashad Penny's running the ball well, then you'll know it's everyone's waiting for it to fall apart for Geno. And well, I just saw a meme or a post that his quarterback rating is better than Tom Brady. So what do you come on, what do you expect? Tough game to call 5.5 favorite is kind, knowing that a home field advantage is normally a 3-point favorite. So that's 2.5 points in addition to. I can't pick the Saints because I never will bet on my team where I have a lot of emotion and favoritism toward it. But tough call, and you know, that Seattle line is pretty tough. And Pete Carroll's have another Pete Carroll year, so good game, I guess. And unfortunately, we got to get back into these winning ways. Hopefully, we do it this week.
That's a good call there. It's going to be a tough one out there in the Big Easy for both teams. I think it's going to be a little bit of a grind there. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Seattle 5.5 point underdogs as they head to New Orleans.
Yeah, I think if you look at this first game that we're going to talk about, that kind of speaks for the, you know, what is this 2022 season? How is it really looking? Here's how it's looking. You've got the Seahawks at 2-2. I would have picked them at 1-3, and I would have picked the Saints at 3-1 probably right now. So that right there boggles the mind. The other one is, raise your hand if you said going into week 5, you knew Geno Smith was going to have the best pass completion percentage of all the quarterbacks in the NFL. 77%. He's put together back-to-back 300-yard passing games. So again, you just look and go, what the heck's going on? Here's what's going to be the issue. How healthy is Kamara? Is he going to play? That's definitely been detrimental to the Saints game. Also, the Saints continue to be plagued by the turnover. Got to take care of the ball. Somebody had the audacity after listening to Coach, I don't know who the writer was, but they actually had the audacity to say how tough it's going to be for Seattle to put together another win because they have to fly all the way from Seattle to New Orleans. And I think what a ridiculous statement considering the travel that the Saints just did. I do like, I will take Seattle extra point, half a point on this one. Give me Seattle +6, but I think it's going to go under 46.
Yeah, it's a good call. And in terms of the travel too, every Seattle team, no matter what sport you're playing, they travel more than anyone else. It's just the geographics of where Seattle is. It's tough, but that is a little ridiculous. I am very, very big on Seattle +5.5. It might even be, look at what the money line is. Will it be worth it? I think this is a winnable game for the Seahawks. And unfortunately, for coach, I know he doesn't really care what I want or this or that, but for the Eagles, they're looking at the Saints as we get your first round pick. So at the moment, the Eagles sit 4-0, best team in the NFL. I believe at the moment they have the 3rd overall pick the way it's going. So, for coach's sake, I hope everything goes well, but for the Eagles' sake, I hope it all falls apart and we get the number 1 overall pick. That would be it's a little sore subject.
Always finding an ankle.
Always. I'm sorry.
Love it. Love it.
Yep.
Goodness. Hey, it's my season. It's my year. I'm going to take it all. It's my year.
But in terms of this game, I think it's there for Seattle. I do agree with Coach. I do think Geno Smith is going to start to come down to earth. I just don't know if this defense is the one to kind of force him to. Now, if Geno goes out and kind of regresses back to maybe Geno of, old, okay, but I don't think the Saints are the team that gets into his head and things like that. And another part of this as well is maybe we're starting to question, was Russell Wilson a product of the system in Seattle? Because Geno Smith, I mean, they're running pretty much the same offense, and it's not dink and dunk, but it's not deep downfield passes. It's dink and dunk first and foremost, and then if we could beat you over the top with DK or Tyler Lockett, great. But you brought up Rashad Penny. I'm so happy to see him running as well as he is. He got called a bust way too early. It was like game 12 of his career, and people were screaming that he was a bust. That's not fair to him. He's got it figured out. I like Seattle plus 5.5. I also like I actually like the over here. And only because the two defenses, I mean, Seattle gave up 45 points to the Lions. And the Saints had, the bend but don't break. They had a lot of red zone stands in London. But I'm going to take the over. I just think we will see some offense here in this one. So,
if I can, one more thing about the games in London, and I know that Seattle and New Orleans aren't playing in London. I know it was New Orleans last week. My other thing, and maybe it's my age, but I am not a doomsayer. I'm not the guy that says, oh my God, my glass is half empty and we're all going to die. But you got that jackass running loose over there in Eastern Europe, making all kinds of threats. Why? Even if he's nothing but hot air and trying to be a bully, why do you want to even risk putting NFL players in harm's way like that and get them stuck over in Europe?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the money is the answer to that question, whether the NFL will say it or not. It's probably the reason why Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime is the beginning, not the end of that. So just get yourselves ready there, folks, for probably streaming services needed to enjoy some Sunday football. But I agree with you. It seems unnecessary with everything that's going on over there. And I don't think Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is missing the payouts for an NFL game. But we'll stick in the NFC South for an interesting game. Atlanta will head to Tampa Bay. This is an interesting one. Tampa Bay is 8.5-point favorites. The over-under at the moment sits at 48. Coach, what are your thoughts? Atlanta at Tampa, a little NFC South matchup. Bucks favored by 8.5.
I think more so than any season past prior to week 5, there's so many just more headlines, regardless of what's on the field and what's off the field. Now you get this report that Tom and Giselle are hiring divorce lawyers, and what kind of impact that's going to be, and the odds of who's going to be dating her next and he's dating next. Like all these little storylines going prior to this game during the week. It's like, geez, give the guy a break for one. 2, let him focus on a conference game. 2, and then you got like this kind of scrappy Atlanta team. This, you just don't know what to expect from this division, this NFC South division, and when you think you really don't. Is this at Tampa?
Yes.
Yes.
And was this game or was it last week that was threatened by the hurricane? Or is there residual damage?
It would have
from
been
that
last
hurricane?
week. I think they were okay by Sunday night. I mean,
Yes.
the damage was done. But yeah,
Right.
I think they announced it actually after the end of our podcast or in the middle of our podcast last week. They did announce that the game would go on as scheduled. So there was probably some eyes on it, but it was luckily for them and everyone in Tampa, they weren't too affected by it. Easy for me to say as I sit in 80-degree weather, but
Yeah, well, we're so spoiled here, but it's another game that I think, like Raider Jim said in his previous earlier, is now we're starting to see how teams will be defined, and this is another game that will define either or of this team. You can always count Brady in a game, but it hasn't been a real Brady-like start to the season so far. My Saints were able to steal one from a pretty energetic Falcon team week one. And for my team's sake, I want to tie. I want these teams to tie at the end of the day. But I'll leave it up to you guys.
I'll follow that up myself. The Tom Brady stuff, I'm not a huge fan of tabloid talk, if you will. And I think there are a lot of people that are looking, oh, this is the game. But if they are hiring divorce attorneys, it didn't happen 4 days ago. This has been brewing. You can speculate all you want. I won't, but I don't think it will affect Brady. If anything, this might be the time for him to go, you know what? Oh, that leaked out. My private life is out in the open. Okay, now it's time for me to kind of turn back into Tom Brady. But at the same time, Atlanta always plays the divisional opponents that they're heavily favored, and they play them tough. You mentioned it, yeah.
They play teams in the division tough. And
it's their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
and they've done well. 8.5. I'll take Atlanta, but I'm not terribly comfortable about it. Just because this game could end up being 21-point deficit, and I could be like, yeah, I probably should have saw that coming. But it could also be a 3-point last second field goal from Tampa, and felt the same way. So it's so tough. I do like the under 48 here because I think you have a really good Tampa defense and an offense for Tampa that's not great, or not a Brady-led offense. I think the under 48 is definitely doable. I feel a little more confident than the 8.5 for Atlanta, but that's what I would do if, for the sake of the podcast. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Atlanta heads to Tampa in an NFC South showdown.
Yeah, both of you very, very correct as far as how the Falcons play people in their division, how they play Tampa Bay. The difference this year is, and I love the guy, former Raider, Marcus Mariota. That's the difference. He wasn't there when they played competitive against all these teams, and they are just not a good team this year. They're 2-2. So, they've got double the wins of the Las Vegas Raiders, but they're getting 108 yards passing per game. They had an okay running game. I think they were top 5 until Cordarrelle Patterson, former Raider, went down. So they're basically going into this game the walking wounded, and I think Brady and the boys just go out and have themselves a good old time. I think they do cover the 8.5, but I do think it will go under 48 because I think they're just going to shut down the Falcons.
Yeah, it's a great point in terms of, the Cordarrelle Patterson. He's probably the only player on that team that could start for a majority of other teams, wherever too. I mean, I don't know what he's listed as anymore. He mainly is a running back, but it's mainly because that's what Atlanta needs. That's a big loss for them. And as you said, it will probably, unfortunately, rear its head this Sunday. But now we shift our focus to the AFC West. We are, of course, recording Thursday night, October 6th. So Denver Broncos will be kicking off in about an hour against the Colts, so we won't be talking about them in the AFC West, but we do have an interesting one, at least to talk first and foremost in the AFC West. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. They head to Arrowhead. They are 6.5 point. No, I'm sorry, 7-point favorites. The Chiefs are, and the over under sits at 51. There's only one of us that can get us started. Raider Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And this is going to be real short, real sweet. When I first started doing this, talking about the Raiders in any form, fashion on media, it was with our great friends Scott and BR, and from broadcast one, I said it each and every week. I'm not an apologist. I don't make excuses. So down dirty and quick, here it is. Las Vegas defense can't keep up with the Kansas City offense. Kansas City covers the 7 points. They're going to the over under, go over 51. Offense can put up the points, defense can't hold it. Now, I say the offense can put up the points, but that's because they have Daniel Carlson. The red zone, still a big question mark and a head scratcher. If you can't execute in the red zone, you're never going to be a contender. So take the Chiefs, take the 7, take the over.
I like it. Myself, I agree on both of those. I will play a little more conservative. I'll buy a 0.5 point just to get Kansas City minus 6.5, just to cover myself. But I do like the over as well. I feel like Josh McDaniels, and I could be wrong. I vaguely remember the Denver stint for him, but his offenses have always struggled in the red zone. I just think it's the way he coaches offense. He wants to take the lid off the defense. Well, when you're on the 5-yard line, there's the lid's already off and you're in a thimble. There is nothing to go over the top for. And I think that's the big problem. It's almost like they get inside the 30 and they run out of room at that point to run their offense.
Well put.
And that's a problem, but I do like the over. I do think we will see some scoring, probably a late garbage time touchdown to get us over that 51. But, it's going to be a very tough task for the Raiders. Coach, what are your thoughts? Raiders heading to Arrowhead.
If there's one game this week that I'd play, it's this one because of the words of the illustrious Raider Jim. I've never been a Josh McDaniels fan. I think their early struggles this week confirm that, for me anyways. But when Raider Jim's throwing out hard facts, how can you ignore them? So I appreciate the Raiders in the past. You usually play KC very tough, very hard. But it's a different regime. It's under a McDaniels that, I don't think has a real proven record. And I had some major concerns when they hired him initially. But I will play Raider Jim's game today because of exactly what he said, and I trust him more than I trust myself.
That's fair. I'm the same way, by the way. Doesn't even have to be Raider affiliated either. It's just, his wealth of knowledge over there. So we're very lucky to have him. And another game he's going to break down here for us. The Los Angeles Chargers, who rebounded to put behind them that terrible loss to the Jaguars. They did get the win against Houston. They will head to Cleveland. This is an interesting one. You have the Chargers 2.5 point favorites going on the road to Cleveland. The over under sits at 47.5. Raider Jim, what do you like?
I like this game. I like this game a lot, and I'll lead with this. At the end of it, the fourth quarter, the gun sounds to end it, game ball, Myles Garrett. He's going to be the difference in the game. He is going to get at Justin Herbert or create enough distraction that somebody's going to get to him who is still nursing his ribs. The Chargers got their running game back last week. They definitely had more success, but that was against Houston. This is not going to be Houston. They are still missing their left tackle. Khalil Mack, he's been playing like Khalil Mack of old, which is great, but now he's shouldering the whole thing because, as we know, Bose is not playing. This is an interesting one in Cleveland. I don't know what the weather is, but for this game, I would take Cleveland. I would take 3 points, and I will say it will go over 47.5.
Yeah. Coach, we'll pass it over to you. I'm going to check the weather on Cleveland. But what are your thoughts? Chargers heading to Cleveland as 2.5 point favorites.
Wow, 2.5-point favorites in Cleveland, and Jacoby Brissett still under the gun or under center for Cleveland. Low number. I would really like to hear what your weather report is.
It seems to be it'll be very mild. There may be some wind, but it looks like you're going to be between 50 and 65, which for the fans in Cleveland in October, I'm sure that's barbecue weather for them. So wind may be an issue, but no inclement weather.
And Rashawn Slater is out.
Yeah, he's done for the year.
Yep, he's done
for the year. Wow, that's a great call. A low number. But I do like the Chargers in this matter. I think that's the first time I've ever said that since they moved. But, yeah, good. 2.5. Okay.
Yeah, the big one for me, now the Chargers, you kind of talked about, their injury woes, obviously Slater being down, Justin Herbert, obviously hurt, or at least, maybe not injured, but he's feeling the effects of this season. Keenan Allen as well. He didn't practice today, but at the same time, Keenan Allen's a great player when he's on the field, but he's just not on the field a ton. He is that quote unquote injury prone. He's kind of dealing with that now. The Chargers will need him because once again, I kind of talked about it last week. They don't really have a whole lot of consistency in terms of the weapons outside of Keenan Allen. Mike Williams, great week one, has been pretty much invisible the last few weeks. I can't speak too much to last week because I didn't watch a ton of that game. But I definitely know over the weeks 2 and 3 didn't really get the job done. I think the biggest factor in this game is going to be Cleveland's run game. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they're great in the backfield, and they're really dynamic. And the reason it's so important, it's because it makes Jacoby Brissett's job so much easier. Jacoby Brissett cannot be the focal point of an offense and then win the game. It's just not going to happen for him. So if he's able to hand the ball off or even get the ball to Hunt or Chubb, and quick little hitters here or there, spread them out, figure that out, I think they'll get there. I'm going to buy a 0.5 point just to cover myself. Give me Cleveland +3 because I do think this is a field goal game either way. In terms of the over-under, I do like the over here. I think we're going to see some points being scored. Been really impressed with Chubb. I think outside of Saquon Barkley, Chubb has been the second best running back that I've seen, really doing his thing. So I do think we see some points being scored. And Herbert is a little beaten up, but he's still up there slinging it. But yeah, he's definitely going to have to keep an eye on, that blind side because Myles Garrett he's having a hell of a year and he's coming.
And I will tell you, it's a much lesser degree, of course, of injury, but it is an injury, and it doesn't take much to be reminded you got bad ribs. He gets to him once, and clean hit down into the ground. He's going to remember that that his ribs are bad.
Right.
And it even I think kind of snowballs in terms of knowing you don't have your left tackle. It's like you're expecting something to happen. You're expecting to be rushed a split second quicker. Those split seconds, those are the difference in a lot of games. So it's kind of like the happy feet in the pocket. You expect to get hit. No one's near you, but Herbert's running around thinking, okay, my clock is up. Someone should be here by now. I need to get out of the pocket or get rid of the ball. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be an interesting one in Cleveland. Moving on to
gentlemen, real quick. I'm going to go on silent mode for a second. So skip me on this one.
No worries, boss.
Thank you.
This is obviously going to be very Brandon centric here, or Brandon Ferst centric, I should say. You got the Philadelphia Eagles as they head to Arizona. The Eagles, let me just check. Oh, I lost my, sorry, one sec. There we are. Eagles are going to be 5-point favorites in this one. The over under sits at 49. I was very impressed with what I saw from the Eagles last week, and they went down 14-0 early. There was a little bit of a fluke pick six, and then Jacksonville went right down the field, and boom, just like that, Jacksonville's up 14-0. I know myself, and I'm sure plenty of Eagles fans just kind of rolled their eyes and went, uh-oh, here we go. Like this might be a moment where, we drop a game. Well, after going down 14-0, the Eagles went on a 29-0 run. They end up winning the game 29-21. And I was really impressed, mainly because it came back, but also because the Eagles really, at least the way I look at them right now, they're not a team that you go down 14-0 and go, oh, they're fine. They can score quickly. Now they did, don't get me wrong, and the defense had a big part of it. But against better teams, I do think the Eagles are going to have to avoid going down 10, 14 plus points early in the game, just because it does get a little difficult to chase the game. But at the same time, the defense for the Eagles continues to impress me. They are the first team ever to have 3 straight defensive player of the weeks. And I know those awards are kind of, this or that, but you look at the guys and what they've done. I mean, Hassan Reddick, the first player in NFL history, or since Jared Allen, to have 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and I think 2 sacks, something like that plus. So he was the one who won defensive player of the week. Really impressed with what I've seen from that defense. I think though, in this one, this is the most explosive offense the Eagles have faced. Even with Kyler Murray's struggles, things like that, this is an offense that has a lot of speed, and the Eagles haven't really faced that yet. I mean, I would say the best offense they've faced would be either the Lions or the Vikings, and those two I would say average at best. The only reason I say the Lions, because they did drop 35 on them. I'll take Arizona +5 here. I think it's a field goal game. I think it's going to be a challenge for the Eagles. And in terms of the over under, I think we're going to be under. I think the Eagles defense does enough to keep it under, but not enough to cover the 5. Like I said, I think we're looking at a 24-21 game when it's all said and done. And I'm okay with that. Once again, this is when we did the preview podcast. I said the Eagles will be 4-0, and then that Arizona game will be a little difficult. Now, Arizona is not nearly as good as I thought they would be, but still, they do have plenty of weapons, and any given Sunday, anything can happen. So, Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Philadelphia heading to Arizona as 5-point favorites, with the over/under sitting at 49.
Yeah, we both had the same outlook, I believe, or very close to the same outlook on the Arizona Cardinals, and they are just not living up to what my expectations were. They're kind of middle of the road when it comes right down to it. If you take away Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown, name me the other big offensive gun. They don't have one. The guy's name is what? Greg Dortch I think he's the other wide receiver. And no, that's just not going to be enough, especially against the Eagles and the way they're playing. They're a dynamo on defense. They've got the most sacks, I believe, and they're just going to create havoc. And they seem to have a very, very solid package. They don't overthink. They don't overrun. They keep the ball in front of them. I think by all means, Philadelphia, one more week, they're going to prove to everybody this is no fluke. Hurts is going to have a great game. They're just going to have a great game all the way around. Marquise Brown and Darius Slade, that's going to be one to watch. We'll see what happens there. But I think your Eagles cover the 5, but I'm with you. I think it goes under 49 on this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely kind of setting myself up for not being upset. I may be taking a betting against the Eagles as long as because once again, I mean, you look at the schedule and you go, okay, 10-0. Yeah, on paper, but I don't think they're going 10-0. They're going to drop a game or two, and that's fine. 9-1, 8-2, heading 10 games into the season. That's fine. I don't know. And I'm pretty sure the last 2 weeks, I definitely took Washington, and I'm pretty sure I took Jacksonville as well. So I'm just kind of, like I said, maybe tempering my expectations, trying not to be too negative. But definitely don't want to be, it's kind of one of those things you prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And that's just what it's been like being a sports fan. But moving on to the other side of the NFC East, this is going to be a really interesting game. The Dallas Cowboys will head to Los Angeles to face the Rams. The line on this is, goodness gracious, I lost it again. 5.5. The Rams are favored by 5.5. And the over-under sits at 43.5. The line actually opened at 52 in terms of the over-under. So big movement there. The bettors have bet that number down. Myself, this one, Cooper Rush continues to win football games, and he's getting better every week. And I think the person who should be scared most is Dak Prescott, because eventually he's going to be healthy and they're going to have to make a decision. But each and every week he's gotten better statistically. But the thing that I've been really impressed with him, no interceptions. So he's keeping his team in it. You know, it's the quote unquote game manager. He's been good, but this defense will be the best he's faced since that Tampa Bay defense. But at least this time he's got a full week to prepare. He didn't, you know, he was in meetings, things like that, but he was not expecting to get any meaningful snaps against Tampa Bay. He will be ready to get snaps against the Rams. I really like the Cowboys in this one, with the points. And in terms of the over-under, I do like over here. I think the number has just dropped too low. I think we will see some scoring. It's weird. Sean McVay, if you kind of look at his, you know, second year, boom, he's in the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. We're thinking, okay, this is the beginning of a dynasty for the Rams. The next year, they're mediocre. I think if they made the playoffs, they were a one and done. We kind of give up on them. And then what happens next year? Boom, they go and win the Super Bowl. Well, is this kind of the other shoe falling, if you will? Is this their time to be wildly mediocre? It seems like the case. I mean, I watched that game Monday night. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that offense, but I do think they do enough to get over 43.5. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Dallas heads to Los Angeles in an interesting one.
Yeah, one of the ones I liked was somebody said, now, if you think the Cowboys are going to go into SoFi Stadium and blah, 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 blah. And if it was the other way around, they'd say, now, you don't really think the Rams are going to go into the house that Jerry built. I mean, sometimes there's just a little bit too much on that. And not only that, if you're really going to look at a game that way, has anybody ever seen how well the Dallas fan base travels?
Especially in LA.
Yeah, this could just be right down the middle, quite honestly. How do I think it's going to play out? I think there's going to be enough defense on the Rams side of the ball to keep them in the game. But I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. And I can see Dallas covering. Give me a half a point. I'll have Dallas +6 on this one. And I'll even, I'm not sure what drove that line down 8.5 points. That is,
it had to have been the Monday night performance. It's the only thing I can think of from the Rams. I don't think it's anything on Dallas's side, but I think it's all on the Rams. 52 is a lot in general.
Might be more of a shootout, so I'll still take Dallas and the +6, but I think I would go over 43 on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's dropped too much. I think 52 is probably too much, but 43 is not enough. We're going to find that sweet spot. I'd probably say 46 to 49 is where we end up. So definitely keep your eye on that one. Looks like Coach still on mute. So we'll move on to an AFC North matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals head to Baltimore. The line sits as the Ravens 3-point favorites. The over-under sits at 48.5. Raider Jim, I'll let you get us started on this one. Well, it's a matchup between Dr. Steve and Craig, the Pope of the podcast, Mizrak.
There you are, that other Super Bowl team sitting at 500 after 4 games. And Baltimore, boy, you talk about guys that they've shot themselves in the foot. Yeah, it's their fault that they're 2-2. At the same time, you talk about a team that deserves to win a game right now. This is a team that deserves to win a game. At home, not sure of the weather conditions, but I think they're going to be okay. My daughter is kind of in the area, and she said it was supposed to clear up by the weekend. So I think you're going to see Lamar Jackson have another fantastic game. You're going to see Cincinnati's offense out there firing on all cylinders. I mean, Joe Burrow wasn't hot in the beginning, but he's definitely kind of like settled back into his game. So I think it's going to be a good game. Marcus Peters, Jamar Chase, that's going to be one to watch. That will be one to watch, and that could be one of the difference makers. I really think there's going to be too much on the Ravens side of the ball. So I will take the Ravens in this one. What do we got for a spread here? Ravens -3. Yeah, I'll take Ravens -3 because I think they're going to end up winning by 4 to 5 and over 48 on this one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the over 48. I think we're going to see a shootout here. I think we're going to see a really fun game.
Fun game.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Cincy obviously weeks 1 and 2 didn't go as planned. They'll want to, turn the page on that, and they have done well. They've won the last 2, and it's not really too hard to see why when you look at the stats. Week 1 and 2, 13 sacks allowed between those 2 weeks. Weeks 3 and 4, 3 sacks. Protect Joe Burrow, you have a chance to win the football game. Now, Baltimore for the season only has 8 sacks, which is about middle of the pack. So I do think that favors Cincinnati. I'd hate to say the Baltimore defense is kind of that disappearing act right now. It's the old joke. Don't ever give the Ravens defense $1 and ask for change, because you're only getting 3 quarters back. And that's kind of where they've been. They disappear late in games. So because of that, I think Cincinnati keeps it close enough, and then we see another backdoor cover or backdoor win against Baltimore. And that would be absolutely insane if that goes as I plan. If Cincinnati wins this game, you got Cincinnati, who's been struggling all year. They're 3-2, and Baltimore, who's been dominating. All of a sudden, they're staring down a 2-3 number. Obviously, still plenty to play for, but I'll take Cincinnati, buy myself a half point, cover myself just in case it is a field goal game for Baltimore. But I'm big on the over. I really like the over. I think we're going to see some scoring because neither of these defenses really bring a whole lot to the table. It's not the Ravens of old. Ray Lewis and Ed Reed ain't walking through those doors, folks. Heck, Terrell Suggs ain't even walking through those doors. So we'll see how that goes. And in terms of the weather, should not be a factor. It's going to be cold for us out here in Southern California, but it'll be perfectly fine for them back east between about 45 and 60 that day. No weather, very little wind as well. So shouldn't be a factor in Baltimore for that one. So now we turn our attention across the pond. Hey, we're talking about another London game, but it's going to be the New York Giants as they face the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, as I said, in London. At the moment, the line is sitting at the Packers 8-point favorites. The over-under sits at 41. I'll get this one started because technically it is NFC East. I'll be honest, the Giants are a surprising 3-1. I don't think a whole lot of people expected them to be in this position, but I think a lot of it's because of Saquon Barkley. He has been so good. I know heading into last week, he led all players in scrimmage yards. I don't know if he continued that trend, but he's healthy as well. And that's the big thing that I'm really excited about. The only thing I do worry about in this game from the Giants standpoint, at least in terms of the 8 points, is going down early. Because as I talked about, Saquon Barkley is the focal point of this offense. Well, with that being said, he's not going to score quickly. He's not the guy who gets you back into games after you're down 17-0, something like that. So if they do go down early, it could get out of control, and it's going to be a tough task. The spread's tough, but I am a big fan of the over 41. I do think Green Bay's offense eventually will get rolling, and why not this week? It all kind of adds up. It's the Giants overperforming London. You don't have to deal with, it would have been in Lambeau. Technically, it's a Green Bay game, but it's going to be tough. Like I said, spread's a little difficult. If you held a gun to my head, I'd probably take Green Bay just because I think they're better than them, but I do like over 41. I just think that's too low of a number for these two offenses. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Green Bay and the Giants duking it out in London.
Another one that's going to tell you how the season is shaping up. A few weeks ago, everybody was talking about, wow, this could be the last time, but it was that marquee game. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. This week, you've got Aaron Rodgers versus Davis Webb. I mean, what do you say? The Giants have been knocked out of the atmosphere, back down onto the ground, standing on earth like everybody else. No Daniel Jones, no Tyrod Taylor. Going to be hard to come by points with that. I mean, the deck is stacked against them. The Packers running game, Aaron Rodgers isn't having his best season as far as passing yards, et cetera, et cetera. However, he's good enough.
Yeah.
And that's all he needs to be, is good enough. because he does have a good running game. And the Packer running game is going to be enough to keep the Giants defense on the field, wear them down. I'll still just buy a half point because I'm with you. 8's a little bit much, but I really think this could get ugly quick. But I do like the Packers minus 7.5, and I do think it's going to be over 41.
Yeah, like it. Two offenses that definitely are struggling, but 41. I mean, that's a 21-20 victory, or 22-21, however you want to slice it up. 3 touchdowns. I think that's very manageable. Might even be a garbage time situation. But Coach is back with us. Coach, what are your thoughts on the London game? The Giants facing the Packers. The Packers are 8-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 41.
Thank you, lads, for holding it down while I was away. Another game across the pond, and it has to do with Aaron Rodgers. And I like Raider Jim's assessment of Aaron Rodgers is not having that prototypical Aaron Rodgers years, but he's going out there doing just enough to put his team in situations to win. And this case is no different. I'm glad that we could talk about Saquon Barkley this late in the season with some significance, but it's just not going to happen for him or those Giants this weekend in London.
Yeah, enjoy the scenery, enjoy Big Ben, but it's probably going to be a rough day / morning for the Giants and their fans this Sunday in London. But moving on to our second to last game, we'll be talking about got the biggest spread I think we've talked about on this podcast this year, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Buffalo. I'll get this one started. Good news for Pittsburgh is Kenny Pickett has yet to throw an incompletion, or at least all of his passes have been caught. The bad news is 3 of them have gone to the other team. He only threw 13 passes last week in his relief of Mitch Trubisky. 3 of them were intercepted. Not ideal. Still early. I'm not closing the book on him or anything, but it is his time now, and his reward for that is to be introduced to Von Miller, who's playing absolutely out of his mind. He's really changing the entirety of that Buffalo defense. 14 points is a lot, but this is a huge mismatch. Maybe the best team in the AFC against maybe one of the worst teams. I know Houston would have something to say about that, but Pittsburgh's got to be on your short list for one of the worst teams in the AFC. I will, just for the sake of the podcast, maybe buy a half a point and just get plus or minus 13.5, just in case. But it's going to be tough. I do like under 46. I just don't know how Pittsburgh's going to score. I feel like the only way it goes over is a couple pick sixes from Kenny Pickett, go the other way. And Buffalo does it kind of all by themselves. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Pittsburgh heavy underdogs as they head to Buffalo.
Yeah, and it's hard to not go ahead and lean on that spread of minus 14. I think that's very doable. Buffalo has shown they're pretty much the cream of the crop, them in Kansas City. They are the 2 teams to beat in the AFC right now. I'm also with you that I don't think it's going to hit the over. I think it's going to be under 46.5. You're looking at the number 1 total defense on the Bills side of the ball. You're looking at the number 1 pass defense on the Bills side of the ball, the number 2 scoring defense on the defensive side of the ball. And like you already said, Trubisky out, Kenny Pickett in, and on the defensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh, they need a lot more than Alex Highsmith to slow down the Buffalo Bills. So there you are. Take the Bills minus 14 and under 46.5.
Yeah, I'll tell you, 5 years ago, if you would have shown me this spread, I would have laughed in your face and asked you what universe you're living in. But
it's
a lot
same
has
thing.
changed.
It's kind of like the Falcons game. 5 years ago, you'd have been looking at Big Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Difference.
Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts? Pittsburgh heavy underdogs as they head to Buffalo.
The 2 names that since the start of the season have just been lingering in my head, and that's been the play of Myles Garrett and, as the aforementioned, Von Miller. Like, geez, what a season he's having, being disruptive on that defensive side. And my affinity for Josh Allen and what I've been talking about as far as Buffalo's progression the last 3 years has been going. Wow, unfortunate for Mike Tomlin and this Pittsburgh team. They're going to be going through some growing pains. The one plus they have on their side is that veteran leadership that Mike Tomlin does provide. But I think Mika Fitzpatrick is out. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he is. I heard that. So. And anytime you're going to lose a star in the backfield of your defense against a guy like Josh Allen and what they do offensively, wow, what a tough week for them. And I like Buffalo this week with that spread and with the numbers going forward. Under, I don't know, man. I really think Buffalo needs to get back on track offensively and see what they do and maybe open it up a whole lot more than in the last couple of weeks. So tough call. Under 46 was the spread or the under over 46?
Yeah, 46 and a half.
46 and a half. Does Pittsburgh have enough? Probably not. So yeah, let's go under 46 with that.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. Just to follow up, Minka Fitzpatrick looks like he'll be a questionable game time decision, whatever you want to call it. He looks like he had limited practice today. But with that being said, he played every defensive snap last week, and I'm sure if he's able, he'll be out there for a lot this year. As he's probably the only guy that you could name on that defense at the moment that's healthy. So it's going to be an interesting one. So final game we'll be talking about today is an AFC East matchup against the Miami Dolphins as they head to East Rutherford to take on the New York Jets. Raider Jim, will get this one started with you. The line is Miami is 3-point favorites on the road, and the over-under sits at 45.5.
I think this is going to be an interesting game. I really, really do. I know Tua is going to be out. Bridgewater is going to be in. For my money, Bridgewater under center is not a bad thing. He's a seasoned veteran. He plays smart. He's still got his feet, and his legs are healthy. With that said, you can't take away what Zach Wilson did last week. He had a pretty decent game. And that was in one quarter. I'm looking at the stats right now. He was 10 of 12, 128 yards and a touchdown in one quarter. I mean, that's a decent resume. That's some decent numbers. What happens this week, though? The Dolphins, along with Teddy Bridgewater, they need to rely on their defensive guys. Melvin Ingram's got to play like Melvin Ingram can play. And let's see what happens. Other than that, out there, what do I see? Let me look at these notes that I've got in front of me. Also in Bridgewater's favor, you still have Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, put him in red and white, put him in green and teal, or white and teal. He still has 477 yards going into this game. But I do think there's something about the way the Jets defense is going to step up on this one. I would take the Jets plus 3.5 on this one. And I would say I would even go over 45. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game.
I agree. Coach, what are your thoughts? Miami at the Jets.
Can I have those numbers again?
Yeah, you got Miami 3-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 45.5.
So I'm thinking Breeze goes down against the LA Rams. In comes Teddy Bridgewater after that injury, struggles in the rest of that game, and does what he can just to save face for the team. Last week, Tua goes down. Bridgewater, it seems like the same scenario other than the injury. Comes in, does what he can to put Miami in a position to win. It just doesn't happen. Then reels off like 5 or 6 straight, right, for the Saints. I could see that same scenario working for a veteran, strong-willed quarterback like Teddy Bridgewater leading this Miami team that has shown a lot of promise to the start of the year with weapons like Tyreek Hill, as mentioned. Interdivision game, 3.5 seems very, very doable. I like Miami in this. I like Teddy B. Teddy B is very well respected, undervalued quarterback in the league amongst his peers, and he goes out week to week whenever he gets that opportunity and proves the naysayers wrong. So I'm not convinced the Jets are what they've been. I think there's still a lot of youth on that team and in their coaching staff, and I really do like what Miami does or has been doing, other than subjecting their star players to life-threatening injuries.
Yeah. And we heard this season that or this week I should say, they asked Tyreek Hill, how close were you to becoming a Jet? He said very close, and he said, well, what was the difference? And he said state taxes. And I'll tell you what, that's something that gets lost a lot when it comes to free agency and things like that. That is a very real thing for a lot of people. But the Jets 2-2. Personally, I think they're already halfway to their win total. I'm not too big on the Jets. I know they've played better. I actually think no matter what Zach Wilson did last week, I think the offense is better off with Joe Flacco in the game. And that's kind of scary. That's not a great, pat on the back to have, but we'll see how it goes. Teddy Bridgewater, you both brought it up. You could do a lot worse than Teddy B as your backup. I think what he brings to the table, just an experience. You're not going to, I don't think the Jets are going to confuse him too much. He might not be the one who wins the game for the Dolphins, but I guarantee you he will not be the reason they lose the game. And I think the biggest part of it in this game is the weapons. You both brought it up. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Those two guys will open the defense up for the Jets, and I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with them. Now, I think Teddy Bridgewater has a stronger arm than Tua, so that's a plus. There were plenty of games. I'm not, kind of kicking a guy while he's down, but there were a couple passes last week that Tua missed on with Tyreek because he underthrew. I don't know if Teddy will do that, or at the very least, he'll be a little smarter with it, get rid of the ball quicker. I like the Dolphins here. I may buy just a half a point just to be safe. But I'm going to take the under here. I think that we're going to kind of see the Jets come back to earth. Like I said, I think they're halfway to their 4 or 5 wins this year. They feel great right now, but the other shoe I think is about to drop here in the next few weeks. I like Miami because they look at themselves and go, you know what? This division is winnable for us right now, but we can't lose games to the Jets, no matter what their record is, no matter what people say about them. So this is a big game for the Dolphins, and I think they get the job done. So
and I'll stick with my big upset pick that the Jets can pull off at least beat the spread. But as I read further down in some notes, Jets are also working on their 5th left tackle. So could
5
be
already. That's a lot for a season, let alone 5 weeks.
Yeah, they've had 4 go down already, so it's gonna be a long day in the backfield.
Sounds like it. Well, we'll send some positive vibes to Zach Wilson's way, and then Joe Flacco if it goes bad. But that is all we got. Let's take up some final thoughts. Coach Lupian, get us started. Final thoughts. What you got for us?
Hey, I'm just so grateful that I can rely on my bench warmers to pick me up while I'm on, the what is it? What I've been doing? What does Kawhi do? Workload management.
Yes,
that's what I've been on. So while I've been on workload management in the last couple of weeks, I'm so grateful I can rely on my guys here to give you their all for your betting needs or your picking needs for the weekend. So I thank you for that. I'm very grateful to you guys, and that workload management thing, it's really relieving. I believe in it. So
yeah. I've been trying to tell my boss about it the last few weeks. Keeps rolling my eyes at me, but what can I say? But no, we're always grateful to have you here, Coach. And every time you're on, we're very, very happy to have you and happy to hear about things, even when, you know, the Saints maybe aren't doing as well as you'd like. But
just rub in the draft pick more.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will. I'll remind you every week where we're sitting. But Raider Jim, final thoughts as we look ahead to week 5 in the NFL season.
Hey, week 5, I guess that means we have 13 weeks left after this, and I'm looking forward to every one of them.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, you know, we kind of started the show off, you know, with the Tua thing kind of on a somber note. I do think, though, overall, a lot of teams, the majority of teams, do want to do what's best for the players to a certain extent, obviously. But the big thing for me is we don't have the answer. I don't know what the answer is to concussions. I don't. I'm never been. I was raised in terms of, if you have a problem, until you have a solution, you don't bring it up, because if you just have a problem without a solution, that's called whining. So I don't know what the answer is. And that's unfortunate, because I do think we thought we were working in the right direction, but I think we saw this past week that we're not. So it's got to be back to the drawing board for the NFL, and hopefully they do get back there because they want to, and not because of what lawsuits could come down the road. But that's another story. So hopefully this week, I don't feel guilty for watching football, ideally. But we'll see how that goes. And ideally the Padres as well. I'll throw the baseball in here. Ideally the Padres finish up the Mets, and all three of us can watch our teams on Sunday without having to worry about a game 3 in that one. But thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.